Interrupted.
We are live. Okay, I'm starting again. I'm calling to order the 280th meeting of the Equal Employment Practices Commission. I'm going to ask the roll to be called by Russell Ferry, the EEPC Director of Research.
Chair Aldrin Bonilla. Vice Chair Elaine Reese.
Present.
Commissioner Menoska Alcantara.
Present.
Commissioner Ngozi Okaro.
Present.
Commissioner Nicole Yearwood.
Here.
Okay. The next item on our agenda is approval of minutes, meeting minutes of March 27th, 2025. Did I have a vote in support of those minutes?
So move.
Second.
Nicole moved and Nicosi second. And I need votes. All those in favor of the adoption of the minutes?
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Any abstentions? None. We continue on with our agenda. On the next item on the agenda is the approval of audit resolutions. A, as to 2025 final determination resolutions, there apparently are none. The second thing, B on that agenda is 2025 compliance resolutions. I ask Mr. to please read those resolutions into the record.
All right, so we have compliance resolutions for Department for the Asian, Department of Correction, New York City Commission on Human Rights, the Civilian Complaint Review Board, the New York City Police Pension Fund, the New York City Fire Department, the Office of Administrative Trials and Hearings, the Office of the Special Narcotics Prosecutor, and New York City Housing Authority.
I would ask for a vote in support of the adoption of those resolutions.
I will recuse from New York City Fire Department.
Okay.
Wait, second.
You vote to adopt?
To adopt.
Okay.
Second.
Okay, Nicosi second. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? None. All abstentions? Hearing none. Please note that Commissioner Yearwood has abstained from voting on the New York City Fire Department. Okay. On the agenda, 2025 final determination and compliance resolutions, there are none. Number 4 on the agenda, old business. A, status of the EEPC personnel hirings and promotion.
So we have a research analyst starting this month, probably May 12th, could be a little bit later. We're also approved to hire for one more research analyst, and we'll be interviewing for that position next Wednesday. We have 3 candidates.
So in terms of where we are in personnel currently, so today, how many people are there working at the EEPC?
Right now, I believe 14, and the new hire that will start this month will bring it up to 15. That's currently it's 13 full-time staff and 1 part-time.
That is, as I believe, more than we've ever had before. That is so the growth is a good growth.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, EEPC budget update.
So we submitted letters to all of the deputy mayors. I believe there are 9. There's an example of one of them in the packet that went to the first deputy mayor. The text for all of them was the same. So in my discussion with the chair last week, we revised the request slightly so that we are now asking for a director of communications, an IT trainee, and also an additional EO analyst.
So if you're asking for 3 more, so we would be up to 18, is that correct?
Yes.
Shall see what happens. Status
And just a question,
update.
will we have sufficient office space?
If we hire even one more person, we would have to move. And that is a bridge we will cross.
Okay.
When we get
Because I
there.
remember that conversation.
Yes,
Understood.
no, we do not have any more space. If once the 2 new research analysts start, that will be at capacity. You could potentially, maybe depending how things were to work out, fit 1 more beyond that, but that is debatable.
You could probably reconfigure some space.
It's possible.
I mean, there is some storage space or some other space that could be reuse for,
Okay, no, I was just checking, because I know we had the conversation about space.
Yeah.
okay, you have not heard back from any of the deputy mayors, I trust.
No, and you were all CC'd on the emails. We
Yes.
emailed and did a hard copy, both. So
That was just the other day, right? That
I
was
think
just-
they were sent on Wednesday.
Yeah.
It'll take a while.
Yeah.
Status update of the controller's office audit.
So the controller's audit of the EEPC is still ongoing. They had a recent request that they made probably on Wednesday. And this is something that I was not brought up to date on before our executive director left, so I don't know a lot of the details. But we made a request to the law department, and I believe, could be wrong, but I believe that our request to the law department was about the time frame in which we have to do the audits. So the charter says every 4 years. Does that mean that if an agency is completed on March 31st in 2015, that we have to complete the next one in 4 years? Or does it mean that we just have a 4-year window? As long as they're completed in that 4-year window, it counts. This is a legal question. So I believe that we made a request to the law department about their definition of what 4 years means. The comptroller's office asked for a copy of our note to them and their response. For now, that is the only hanging chad. If that is addressed, it may be complete, but they did not confirm that.
Okay. I'm going to assume that D under old business is the agenda for the meeting with the DCAS Commissioner Louis Molina. Since that has been delayed and the status, we need not discuss that agenda at this point. in
Yes.
time. We can do that in the future when the meeting is reset.
Absolutely.
Okay, new business, New York City Commission to Strengthen Local Democracy.
So you were all on the chair's emails about this charter revision commission, and they are holding a series of public hearings. They've already had one earlier this week in Queens. There are 4 more scheduled, 3 of which would apply to us. And so the chair would like commissioners to be able to attend.
Can you give me the dates again? Because I thought one of them was indeed one that I could attend.
So there's one on May 6th, and these are all from 5 to 7 o'clock p.m.
Okay.
So there's one on Tuesday, May 6th, so that's next Tuesday, at Restoration Plaza, which I believe is in Brooklyn, 1368 Fulton Street. There is another one on land use, which does not apply to us, so we don't have to worry about that one. There's another one after that on Wednesday, May 14th, at the Staten Island Museum at Snug Harbor. That's about budget transparency, so that is, pertains to us. And then there is the last one on Monday, May 19th, also from 5 to 7 at John Jay College. I believe the chair indicated in his email that he plans to be able to attend that.
The only one that I could attend is the May 6th one, and I'm not sure I can. I have to double check my calendar.
Okay.
So I will get back to you.
Okay.
And I can attend May 6th. I may be able to attend virtually, but now, did he want us to give the testimony at each one of these? Is that what he was
I
looking for?
believe that's what we would want to do.
Okay, got it. Okay, so then May 6th, even virtually, I'm supposed to be in 2 places already. And even if I was virtual, I would just be listening in.
I had said in my response email, I could attend something. I don't remember what it was. You all have that?
I did not receive that.
I didn't-
Oh, you know what? I said maybe I only replied to the chair.
I may
Look it up.
be
You can
able
go
to
on the
go
19th.
to May 19. I need
At John Jay, okay.
Yeah.
I could do the 19th also.
Not a bad idea for there to be multiple
Yeah.
ones of us. Having served on a long time ago on Charter Revision Commission as Deputy General Counsel, there's a lot of, one of the better term, schmoozing that occurs. And it's helpful to be there and to articulate our positions more than just into spoken, into testimony. So I think it would be helpful. anyway. Just my opinion.
Yeah, the one on the 14th, I can't do it all. I have a conflicting meeting, out of town.
Yeah, I'm out of town. My grandson is graduating from the USC.
Oh.
Which is nice.
Yeah.
Not a bad place to visit.
But I'm really out of town. I'm really cross country out of town.
Yes.
Anyway.
So I said I could do May 12th, which is Bronx Museum of the Arts, or the 19th, which is John Jay.
The one on the 12th is about land use, so I don't know if
Okay.
that.
Yeah, that's what I just replied this morning, like, just tell me the ones you need
Okay.
us to cover. So it's the 6th to 14th.
We're gonna do the 19th.
It looks
What
like
is the May
it's gonna be a
6th?
party.
The May 6th is the one in Brooklyn, and that is government accountability.
Okay.
That's the most relevant to us.
Yeah, it
Certainly.
is.
Yes.
Okay. New business B, audit standards for the next cycle.
So we have formed an internal working group. Jean wrote a draft proposal for new audit standards for the cycle. The focus will likely be on the complaint process, the EEO complaint process, and the reasonable accommodation process. And so Jean has a current draft of standards that are related to those two topics. We have formed an internal group of people in research and the audit unit, the general counsel, to look at the standards and come up with text that we can then share with all of you. And we have taken into account from previous commission meetings the things that you have indicated that are important to you. And so, this.
What's troubling to me about us is that we have made the audit process quite efficient. So it's really being able to respond online as opposed to interviewing anybody. And we come up with standards and questions. Let's just, for a minute, let me play devil's advocate with either accommodation or complaints. I'll do accommodation. And so we say, do you have accommodation for people who are disabled? And they say yes. And we say exactly, they either have to tell us what they do or they don't tell us what they do. But we probably ask them questions about how you do it. But we don't investigate. We don't, their response is a response without our sense of whether or not that response is or is not accurate. And so it's really, we're doing a paper audit as opposed to, in my simplistic way, an investigative audit. I don't know how we change ourselves because I'm not sure we have the manpower really to change ourselves. But as you are looking with the questions and as you're creating questions, I'd like them to be far more investigative in nature, far more complete as to asking sort of how and almost down how and what is the reaction and are there any complaints about accommodation? And if so, what is the tenor of those complaints? Can you, without disclosing whose complaint, share with us so we can see the complaints? And without that, I think we're just a paper tiger without actually being able to investigate. And we used to, so this is going back over years, we used to go as we began an audit and meet the head of the agency and shake hands and talk to them and meet the people who were doing the audit. That we stopped doing because it took too much time. Took too much time to put together. It didn't seem to serve a purpose. We worked on creating something that was more efficient and going to do it and working with them and putting together the ability to do it by technology. It's far more efficient. We can do far more audits because of it, but the audits don't have the audits are lacking teeth from my perspective. And I don't know how to reinsert that within it. So when you have trouble with you now don't have a whole lot of non-compliance because I think everybody figured out all they have to do is respond, and that's pretty easy. And so and they respond to your standards, but we have no way of knowing whether those responses are accurate or not. It's just a very personal point of view. So I am sharing it online, but I really think that we need to, as we are going in to deal with complaints, which is really how you find out how employees are being dealt with, and accommodation, which is also how employees are being dealt with, whether they're being dealt with fairly or not. We want to figure out a way to ask some more invasive questions from my perspective, just not simple yes or no's or give me an answer, but really look at a couple of steps in those questions. If there have been complaints, can you share? And they don't have to give you the name of the human being. They don't have, all they have to do is go to their complaint file and send you, and they don't even have to send you the complaint. You just want to know what it says.
Another thing is, to your point, that waiting to meet with the commissioner and the compliance director at the beginning may delay the whole process. But what about doing it at the end? With these are the results, this is what we saw, this is whatever. So the line of communication continues without interrupting the process when it comes to letting them know that this is our findings, the investigation piece we like to do, and then it becomes more of we bring the results and findings at the end to them directly. Even though we're going to send the reports, but at least they hear from us our perspective on their specific areas.
I like that idea.
Yeah, it could be, you could be hand delivering the certificate. It could be, I just have an appointment to, it's a way of inserting ourselves as how important the audit itself is.
And I'm just thinking, who would actually do that? Would that be the executive director? Would that be the executive
It
director?
could be,
chair?
it could be Russell, it could be,
If it is the commissioner, should
it
be
could be a
the
commissioner, it could be a commissioner going along with someone from staff to do it. It would be based on availability.
But I think that if it is meeting with the commissioners of these agencies, our executive director or one of us with one of you, if she in her absence, then might work.
I agree.
And then with more invasive questions, I'm just thinking, because our audits are supposed to kind of be universal. So how do we pick the more in-depth questions that are applicable across 40 agencies that we're auditing in a year? I think that's what we're running into. I think that there are different agencies that might require a deeper dive, but to get one question that kind of gets that from everyone, I'm just thinking, like, what kind of questions would those be?
I agree with you, Commissioner Yearwood. It's a challenge I have now delivered.
Oh, okay, okay.
It's a challenge I've delivered. We're very sure.
Insightful question.
I don't know, I do not know the answer to it, but simplistically, let's just deal with, there have been complaints about accessibility. So we're going to look at accessibility, there have been complaints about accessibility. And what we'd like to understand is the tenor of those complaints. And you're absolutely right, they're going to be different. Those responses will be different from different agencies, but we will be able to have a better sense of what's going on, whether or not the disabled person is able to get to the bathroom, or whether that disabled person has had a telephone that has been given to them that they can utilize. I mean, I don't know exactly what those complaints are going to be, but you're right, they're not going to be the same.
And then I guess what I'm also thinking with, and I have a research background, but I haven't done it in some time. But so then you ask the question, right, to get that in depth from these agencies, and then you have to figure out a way you capture it so that you can actually say something about it, right? So it's like you have to ask it to get, goodness, I'm going back. Like, so there's quantitative and qualitative.
Yeah.
And then you can ask like a multiple choice, and then based on the answers, you can say, okay, this amount of people said this, like to get like a universal answer. So when you get that anecdotal information, how do you then talk about it later in a way that like you can say, this is what we're seeing across the agencies we audited this year? When I guess I feel like if we get too specific and too detailed, we won't be able to have a proper analysis at the end. And I'm trying to find the appropriate research
You're
term.
absolutely right about the balance, and I understand that. But right now,
And not saying that we shouldn't. I do understand what you mean, that it would be, better to have more. But I'm also thinking of staff time and how research is done and looked at and then processed later for a report.
Well, you can do it per agency, and then you could, from the research perspective, to look at, once you look at the data, commonality patterns are going to evolve.
Right.
So you will be able to see, oh, interesting. All the women in these particular agencies feel this way or do this way or complain about these. So the data is the one, bringing you the results of what the findings are.
Yes,
But it's
went
interesting
for maternity leave, and when they came back, they didn't have the same position.
Yeah, something like that.
Because that was actually the reason also why I asked for that list of like, what are the common deficiencies that we were seeing like across, so we could kind of say, okay, like we're seeing some sort of pattern. Listen, I'm gonna leave it to the experts, so y'all see it. If you,
That's what I said. I repeat myself. I gave them the challenge.
You did,
And,
yes, you
and I did not come up with a response. That's their job.
And I'm trying to help y'all out over here.
The client's on your side. For the record.
Yeah, that's for the record.
Okay. The next one is incidents of sexual harassment at New York City entities.
So this was quite an extensive discussion at the last commission meeting. This was something the chair was very interested in and concerned about, given some recent headlines in the news and just the general concern about personnel. So in further consultation with the executive director, with the agency council, with the chair, we believe the best approach to try to obtain some data will be to reach out directly to other city agencies. So this will include DCAST, the law department, the Commission on Human Rights, and our general counsel, who is not in today, will be reaching out to those agencies in the next week or two, and we'll start a conversation with them about what is available and what information we can start to gather.
Could I go back to the conversation we were having before the meeting began? Commissioner Yearwood was talking about the training at the city council level of city council staff, and the sexual harassment, it seems to me, really does require training, and because we're changing some of the social mores. So to the extent that some of us who are a little older than others, it was okay for us to kiss people hello or to put our arms around people. We now know that's prohibited. So it really, and it's not necessarily age, it's also cultural. It is really an understanding of what how people normally act. And we're trying to alter that by calling a lot of it as sexual harassment. I'm not sure telling me that you think my dress is nice today is sexual harassment, but someone might really take umbrage and say that it is. I think from my perspective, and I think Nicole raised it, as I say earlier, it really requires looking at who is doing the training, where the training is being done within the agencies, and who's attending the training. Is it a required attendance by everybody? Does everybody have to sign in and stay there, or is it something I can miss? Because I think that's a piece of what we're looking at. I think we're looking at a piece of people not understanding what harassment actually is. That again is just my opinion, but I just think that becomes part of the problem and part of the issue.
Absolutely.
I would actually agree with that. I've definitely had conversations with people, you know, in my personal network who work for the city who have done the training, well, before they did the training and then after. And I said, I gave a similar example. I said, you know, you might be fine with someone saying, oh, your dress looks nice today. I said, and someone else may not. I said, and for them, could be considered harassment. Or I said, you can tell her dress is nice, and then I'm uncomfortable, and then I can feel harassed. And it's like, you know, and most people don't understand, like, well, you can't say someone's dress is nice. And I'm like, you kind of can't anymore. You kind of can't. Like, you almost can't.
I want to take back that I asked Nikosi who made her blouse.
No, it's different. Who made it? Well, is it Ngozi? Were you comfortable with that?
So I think
She's
comfortable and uncomfortable is very different from sexual harassment, right? So I want to define or confine our conversation to the scope.
Yeah.
But that's the thing. So like someone then could go report that and it could look.
But it's not sexual harassment. It could be something else, but there are other things than sexual harassment.
So what
how do you
umbrella would that
define
go
sexual
under?
harassment?
What would that go under?
What? Like people being uncomfortable? I mean,
If you say somebody's dress looks nice, what is,
somebody's dress looks nice.
but,
No, but
if somebody falls,
That's different than saying you look nice in that dress, which I think would not be an issue, but it could be. Right.
it could be an issue.
Could be.
But my question is, how is sexual harassment defined by the law? Because I know that the issues that we're describing are the issues that go through the rumor mill and people interpret uncomfortableness with sexual harassment. So what is the line that we draw for those type of?
Unfortunately, the line is that if I feel uncomfortable with it, then I can go forward and say that I have been sexually harassed. That is a tenuous line. It is problematic. And that's why, as I started out at the outset saying, we're trying to change social mores. There's some cultural changes in here, and we just have to be sure that everybody's gone through the training. Yes, it's going to make the headlines if it turns out that it's more than being uncomfortable, that someone actually has been asked to give sexual favors. That's different. But right now, I think all we can look at is to make sure that the training of harassment is done all over the place, and that more importantly, and that for your point, that there is a uniform New York City definition of sexual harassment.
Right.
That that we have a working definition of what that is, and that we train our employees to understand that working definition. I don't think there's anything wrong with the Jew. I think you're right, Nikosi.
Yeah, and in fact, my whole staff is doing a training. It's on New York City government site on sexual harassment. It's CCHRs, and so like there it is right there.
Okay. The next thing on, is there any more discussions on incidents of sexual harassment at New York City and cities? Okay. Hearing none. We are up to number 6, audit update, A 2024 audit plan status updates.
Yes, so we'll have a sheet in your packet that corresponds to that item. So first, I would say the agencies in the compliance completed column that are highlighted green are the agencies that we just voted on the compliance resolutions for. So there were 9. Another thing I'll just note about the 2024 audit plan. So we launched 32 audits in that plan. As of today, We have completed 25, so there are 7 remaining, which is about 78%. And we have, at this moment, 16 compliance resolutions for the calendar year. And as mentioned in a prior meeting, the goal this year is to have 58, and that combines the 32 audits from the 2024 audit plan with the 35 audits from the 2025 audit plan, which we'll discuss next.
What is FD again?
Final determination. Yes, and there is a notation toward the top and one of the columns for it, but then afterward it is abbreviated. So but yes, it stands for the final determination.
And then can we put a little legend of the abbreviations? Because I see PD.
Okay,
The
on
B-
in another
right
area.
here,
Okay,
right.
okay, I can.
Thank you.
Okay. So combined, we will have met our numbers, and the issue is whether the controller will buy that.
Well, I feel like if we get them all fully completed in terms of compliance resolutions within the calendar year, then it will be hard for, but yes, we're still waiting for that final.
Okay. All right.
And I guess just for the 2025 audit update, which is the next item, you also have a sheet corresponding to that item. And once again, as I just mentioned, we're launched 35 audits, and in general, we have already sent our first 2 preliminary determinations for the year. And we have about another 3 that are in like second round drafts. So we're well on our way for the 2025.
So we have 7 audits from 24 remaining and 35 from 25.
That is correct, yes.
Thank you.
You are.
Okay. We're ready for number 7, research update, local law 13 report.
At the time of the last meeting, it had not yet been posted, but it has since been posted and submitted to the mayor's office.
All right.
Thank you.
EO impact analysis update.
This is what used to be called the pilot program. So 2 things. One, the agency that we were working with has approved the report. So whenever we want to release it and share it with the world, we can. So we'll discuss a timeline and a strategy for that. Secondly, we submitted to them a fairly extensive and detailed request for additional data that they have been very receptive to. I had a conversation with my main contact there last week. The request that we've made is fairly extensive. It's not something that you can just click a button and send along. There's a lot that they have to do to compile it and organize it. But they are very receptive to what we've asked for. And I think that we're going to get a lot of rich, detailed data that will allow us to, publish further analyses of this agency and their work that hopefully we can use to model for other agencies too. So it's been a very good, cooperative, ongoing relationship.
I have a dumb question. Do you want to do other agencies or just use it as a model?
No. We want to apply this to other agencies as well. And especially with the hiring of our additional staff, we will have the capacity to do that. The main hurdle is getting the agencies to agree to do this. It's not something they're required to do.
Well, but if you, let me get backtrack. We know, if you can go public with the agency that you have done, it seems to me that very well might give you the impetus to find other like agencies that would agree to do it. So, let's not discuss any of them, but if you found agencies with a like number of large employees and with a like number of variation skill sets, because that's a portion of what they show. There are agencies that meet those criteria, and if you could get the commissioner who has been receptive to talk to a commissioner, if you can put your sights on who you would like to do next, and you could get that commissioner to talk to his fellow commissioner and encouraging them that we are not evil, that this is helpful, No, I'm being serious. It sounds funny, but that's what I'm
I
saying.
don't know if I would just use the word E, but, oh, understood. I get where you go. I was just like,
So that we could go forward with trying to find others. I mean, I can think of several other agencies that have like skill sets and large jobs, that would be, would be helpful.
Absolutely. I think now being able to share the report is helpful so that people will have something to look at. We will be creating a brief, like 4-pager, also version of it too, so that, when we're trying to talk to these agencies and encouraging them to participate, that we'll have something to show them about the work that we've done. And yes, we will certainly work with our contacts or reaching out to other agencies to do it. But yes, that is the goal, is to broaden this out.
Well, you should be applauded for what you have done so far and what we have undertaken so far. And what you, from our position, the commissioners are very pleased with it all and are very pleased with the work product and encourage them to continue. So please tell what remains of your staff, since your staff has sort of undergone
Yes,
change.
some change since then, yes.
We really,
Thank you.
we really are pleased, perhaps even thrilled. Okay.
I wanted to just add a piece on there. I think that our angle should be that we actually, even though it might be a little bit annoying doing it now, that we actually save people time, resources, and money in the long run.
Right, yes.
Yeah.
And I think that that is something that would appeal to agency leadership to say, this might save me a headache in the future, or a big headache, or an expensive headache. Let me just go ahead and get this out.
It should save you litigation.
With the headache. That's the headache. Yes, that's the headache. I'm sure litigation, lawsuits, money.
Yeah.
But
Right.
beyond that, it also should give you a better workforce. Because the analysis looking at people's, I mean, I found in the report, and I mentioned it in the prior meeting, the dissatisfaction with the civil service system.
Yeah.
To be rather interesting and a misunderstanding of the 1 of 3 and not understanding how it functions, and that it isn't a way of people resolving hiring issues and getting around the rules. But that appears to be certainly some of the attitude within the workforce, and that, Nicole, that actually is, to your point, that is really sort of helpful to expose it and to ask that to be a better understanding of it, because that will save some grief. That also helps to have a workforce that is happy. Horrible word, but is pleased. But is pleased.
Evil is bad word. Happy is good word.
But also,
Like happy.
I was gonna say that also for the person, agencies sometimes we do it yearly, climate surveys.
Yeah.
To understand where people stand. But the climate survey is being analyzed by the people within the agency.
Yes.
So not that I'm saying that people have different, spin, but to see sort of the same data analyzed by external individuals is a good audit, and it gives you a good insight into, putting the finger on the pulse and understanding these are the main issues that I need to focus on. How do I even start to tackle them? Sometimes you don't even know that those issues those undercurrents are happening, because when you do your climate survey, sometimes people are concerned that people will know who you are because they could access your IP address from the computer, and these issues and the other in this area that we live now, these times of conspiracy theories and all that, as if IT doesn't have any work to do. But they do. And getting somebody outside
Yes,
the agency to come in and say, hey, this is what we see, this is whatever, it's a good indicator. You could compare the two and say, oh, we missed this, whatever. So it's a great,
that's another
Cool.
sales pitch.
yeah.
I think Nicole's sales pitch on saving you time and effort is a good one.
And then
In fact, that it probably, because it's nonpartisan from outside,
Lawsuit payouts.
yeah, but it's because it's coming from outside and therefore not influenced by staff, by the
Yeah.
internal staff, is also a good sales pitch.
Absolutely.
Okay. All right. Where are we? Are we? Oh,
Section of the,
affairs, New York City municipal workforce
No, C.
no,
C.
EEPC 2025 reception.
reception update.
So we're in talks with New York Law School about some potential event. We were supposed to have a call with them last week. They requested to reschedule, and we will not speak to them.
I want to go to law school. Let them know that I want to go to law school.
Oh.
Well, I know the dean. I'll speak.
Talk on my behalf. I don't want to take the exam though. That's my only thing.
No, what happened with the reception update was, the executive director and I both attended the one on the independent budget office.
Mhm.
It was historical in context. We are part of that same history. The New York Law School has a wonderful mailing list beyond having a marvelous auditorium. If we can interest them in doing for us what they did for the International Budget Office, putting together a program that talks about how we started, et cetera. And my point being that given what the federal government is doing by walking away from equal employment and walking away from looking at discrimination, the fact that the city is reinforcing its rules and its operations looking at equal employment, it makes it very timely.
And this,
So that's what
you,
no,
New York Law School.
which is down here and does a whole lot of work with city employees and with staff. They've been doing it for years. And their dean is someone who used to be the general counsel for Mayor Blumberg, and he has since become the dean of the law school. And that's when I knew him all those years ago. When I was talking before about the charter revisions, he was the general counsel, I was his assistant. So I went back to call him and see, and he set up this meeting with his staff, and we shall see where it goes. But that was the stimulus, and that continues to be my focus, to use that as a model for us to have a similar kind of presentation with speakers. We would need their aid and assistance in getting some of the speakers to put us on the plane. And then we would have our own public relations people, but they have their public relations people, and they do a pretty damn good job of getting out to attendees. There are lots of attendees at these functions. Okay. If there's no other discussion, I will hear a move for adjournment. You move.
I move.
2 seconds.
I'm second.
We are adjourned.